There may be few tropes more enduring and timeless than that of the forbidden romance. Whether it's the mortal girl your love goddess mother has a beef with, or your royal husband's most noble knight, whether your amour is deemed socially improper or culturally taboo, finding love in all the wrong places never goes out of style. Because no matter how many rules or regulations or thou shalt nots the powers that be put in place, people are still people and the heart wants what it wants. And few people got mileage out of that idea like the bard himself. So let's talk about that quintessential tale of star-crossed love, William Shakespeare's the most excellent and lamentable tragedy of Romeo and Juliet. This play, like a lot of Shakespeare's work, is derived from earlier sources, which was pretty common in the days before intellectual property rights were a thing. While stories of children from quarreling families falling for one another goes back at least as far as Ovid, the earliest version of this particular iteration is Luigi da Porto's Giulietta e Romeo, first published posthumously in 1531. This was subsequently expanded on by Matteo Bandello in 1554, translated into French by Pierre Boistuto in 1559, then brought to the English language in verse form by Arthur Brooke in 1562, and in prose by William Paynter in 1567. Shakespeare got his hands on either one or both of these versions and took his own crack at it, writing Romeo and Juliet probably somewhere between 1591 and 1595. It was instantly one of his most popular works and has been performed pretty steadily in one form or another ever since. So, on the off chance that you haven't encountered this play in one of its many variations, here's how it originally went down. In fair Verona, two noble families, the Montagues and the Capulets, have long been feuding for reasons unexplained and possibly unknown even to those involved. Local head honcho Prince Aeschylus has had enough with the regular street brawls between the clans, and after one such skirmish declares the next time someone starts a fight, they'll be put to death. But Lord Montague's only son Romeo isn't interested in any of that, as he's too busy moping over being rejected by the fair Rosaline. His friend Mercutio, to lift his spirits, proposes they disguise themselves and crash a party being thrown by Lord Capulet, where Romeo becomes instantly smitten with Capulet's only child, Juliet. The instant smittenness is mutual, and, with the aid of Juliet's old wet nurse, the young couple are wed by Friar Lawrence, who hopes that a union between the families might finally put a stop to the feud. This proves to be a futile wish, as Juliet's hot-headed cousin Tybalt has been spoiling for a fight ever since he recognized Romeo at the party, and despite Romeo's attempts to cool things down, he crosses swords with Mercutio and kills him. An enraged Romeo then kills Tybalt in revenge, fleeing before the family heads and the authorities come to the scene. Since Tybalt started the fight and the late Mercutio was a relative of Aeschylus, the prince commutes Romeo's death sentence to banishment from the city. This is small consolation to the lovers, who share a furtive wedding night before Romeo is forced to leave. Things instantly go from bad to worse when Juliet's parents announce they've arranged her marriage to another relative of the prince, Count Paris, and when Juliet balks at the idea, her father flies into a rage and tells her she can go through with the wedding or get kicked out of his house. Distraught, Juliet runs to Friar Lawrence, seeking a way out, ready to kill herself if he can't provide one. Luckily, the holy man is also something of an herbalist, and he knows of a tincture that, when ingested, induces a death-like state for about 2 days. He advises Juliet to make peace with her parents, then take it, while he notifies Romeo of the situation and prepares to get her out of the family vault, where she'll be interred after her presumed demise. This all goes as planned, at least until circumstance prevents Lawrence's messenger from getting to Romeo, and he instead hears the news that Juliet has died. Mad with grief, he returns to Verona, breaks into her tomb, after killing Count Paris, who was visiting Juliet's grave and accused him of vandalizing the crypt, and poisons himself just before Juliet wakes up. Seeing Romeo dead and hearing people approaching, she acts fast and stabs herself just as the surviving players turn up on the scene. Friar Lawrence explains the situation, Prince Aeschylus chews out Lords Montague and Capulet for perpetuating the situation which led to their children's deaths, and the two families make peace and promise to erect golden monuments in honor of Juliet and her Romeo. When discussing Romeo and Juliet in terms of a love story, it's always pointed out that the two title characters are basically kids. Juliet is about 2 weeks shy of her 14th birthday when the play begins, and although Romeo's age is never mentioned, he's probably not a whole lot older. This isn't just a things were different back then thing either. Juliet is explicitly described at one point as at least 2 years too young for marriage, arranged or otherwise. And that's kind of the point. For all its beautiful poetry, Romeo and Juliet is less a tragedy about doomed love and more about how these two young people are ultimately failed by their families and their society, leaving them with no recourse but the most desperate. Romeo is drawn into a cycle of violence he has no wish to take part in. Juliet is forced by her parents to choose between submission and destitution at the exact time her entire world is collapsing. The people who should be helping and protecting them are either unable or unwilling to do so, leaving them with nothing but each other. Two children clinging to each other in a careless, violent world until it destroys them both. Those us against the world vibes were definitely clocked by the creators of West Side Story, switching out archaic notions of family honor for the more contemporary specters of gang violence and racism. The conflict of the story is not so much jets versus sharks, but love versus hatred, culminating in the dramatic moment where Maria threatens to continue the senseless destruction that has taken Tony from her. Moreover, the theme of young people abandoned by society is expanded not only to include the leading couple, but those around them. G. Officer Krupke is a satiric look at a social system that sees disenfranchised adolescents as a problem to be solved rather than human beings to understand, while in both film versions, America emphasizes the disparity between the promise of American immigration and the reality faced by the Puerto Rican characters. Spielberg's 2021 adaptation further adds gentrification into the mix, further emphasizing the larger social movements which the characters are unable to influence but are affected by nevertheless. On the other end of the spectrum, And Juliet takes the famous tragedy and deconstructs it entirely by asking one simple question. Who is Juliet apart from Romeo and, indeed, any of the other characters whose actions end up dictating the course of her life and death? What would her story be if she could be an individual rather than one half of a couple? If she were allowed to choose life and independence rather than tragedy? It's kind of interesting that a lighthearted jukebox musical that explicitly ages Juliet to 20-something to avoid the moral implications of a 13-year-old going clubbing with adults and engaging in whirlwind romances recognizes on a certain level that the problem of Romeo and Juliet comes down to what happens when young people are treated as property or issues or nuisances rather than as, well, people.